Greetings. In the name of State of Maine, you're hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Anson, qualified by law to vote in town affairs, to assemble at Garrett Skank School on the 18th day of June 2025 at 7 o'clock in the evening, to transact all business and herein enumerated in the articles of the warrant. Article 1. To elect a moderator to preside at said meeting. Do I hear any nominations?
Nominate Ernie Hilton.
Third.
There's a second. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations shall cease. All those wishing to vote for Ernest Hilton, please come and cast a written ballot. So I said some. Oh, so we only need a 3, so we have 3. So that's for you if you want to raise your hand. Jeremy. Yeah, you're welcome. I declare that Ernest Hilton has been nominated as moderator of this special town meeting.
Thank you, Kim.
I state your name.
I, Ernest Hilton,
Do swear
do swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so long as I shall
so long as I shall
continue a citizen thereof.
continue a citizen thereof.
I state your name.
I, Ernest Hilton,
Do swear
do swear
that I will faithfully discharge,
that I will faithfully discharge
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my abilities
the duties incumbent upon me
the duties incumbent on me
as a moderator of this meeting,
as the moderator of this meeting,
according to the Constitution and the laws of the state.
according to the Constitution and laws of this state. There may be a few of you out there who don't know me. I'm Ernie Hilton. I live out here in Stocks, about a mile and a half, 2 miles from here. I have a law office in Madison. I don't think I've ever moderated an Anson town meeting. This is two rather fraught subjects, public safety and ATVs. I suspect there's going to be a lot of discussion tonight. All discussion needs to go through me. Nobody should be attacking anybody else for whatever their opinion may be or what their viewpoint may be. Depending on how things go, I don't want to have a lot of repetitive discussion. I suspect a lot of you have already made up your minds as to how you're going to vote on this. I think we need to come to grips with an understanding that you may not be changing the minds of many other people. So at some point, which seems opportune, I may just call for the vote. Okay? I'm going to propose an Article 1A, which is to adopt the Maine Moderator's Manual, a guide to town meetings, 7th edition, published in 2021 by the Maine Municipal Association. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards. All those opposed, it's a vote. Article 2. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Anson will vote to eliminate the current 2 full-time Anson firefighters operated positions originally approved at the 2021 annual town meeting and then return all positions back to paid on-call firefighters within the Anson Fire Department effective immediately. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, sir.
Can I amend that to a written ballot at the end when it comes time to vote on it?
We can have the written ballot.
Okay, I just want to make sure it doesn't sneak through.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? The gentleman was suggesting that we have a written ballot, and I believe that that's already been indicated by others. What I first said? You want me to read it again? You didn't understand what I said? You didn't hear me?
I heard you, but I didn't quite grasp it all.
All right. I'll read it again. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Anson will vote to eliminate the current 2 full-time Anson firefighters operating positions originally approved at the 2021 annual town meeting, and then return all positions back to paid on-call firefighters within the Anson Fire Department effective immediately. And we have a motion to that effect, as read, and a second. And we're under discussion at this point. Yes, ma'am.
So, yes to get rid of the full-time firefighters, no to keep them.
Yes, there's a couple of other things I can read here. This article was submitted by a citizen's petition as certified on May 7th, 2025. A yes vote will eliminate the 2 full-time firefighter positions, and a no vote will keep the 2 full-time firefighter positions. Thank you for offering that clarification. Yes, Ann.
I hadn't realized that this was happening right now, so I do need more information that I'd like from people who've been thinking about this. I do want to say that I know that Tammy Murray, who always worked in the interest of the town, had worked hard to establish these positions. So that means a lot to me. What I'm hearing from this, and I would like to know more about the subtext, is that somehow, and please correct me, I need information, that right now those 2 full-time positions are answerable to the select people, and that by going back to the other way, they would then be answerable or be under the guise of the fire department. And what I have heard in the years that I've been here is that there's a lot of tension as to the independence, that the fire department wants to be very sort of an independent entity. My thought is that it really is an office of the town and that it should work that way. I care about accountability, and we in this town know what happens when someone in the town is not accountable. And I think that streamlining that accountability for the full-time positions could be important. Otherwise, I don't know what the fire department's going to do. I don't elect those people to those offices. I don't have any recourse when they make decisions. I don't know how they've decided on something or when they're going to activate these positions. So I would like more information, and I want to know whether this is being driven by some sort of, fire department versus town official kind of thing.
Anybody on the board want to answer that? And I would also ask if there's anybody present who is part of this petition-making process, I'd like to call on them at some point. So, any of the board members want to address this?
Well, they are under, the fire chief does oversee these full-time fires. Not everything else you said.
Could you use the microphone?
Also, the fire chief is in charge of the volunteers to call me.
Now, her question was, does the town office run these 2 full-time firemen and the fire chief? And the fire chief is their boss, along with all the other firemen.
So it's basically the same as the highway department. Arnie runs the highway department, and then the select board oversees Arnie. The chief runs the fire department, but the select board oversees the chief.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I don't see very well, so anybody who has just the mic, wait, there you go. Yes, sir.
I'm just going to put some information out there that I know is factual, and you can take it for whatever it's worth. jobs are taken away. That is not the case. There's just 2 jobs added to it because we are so slim during the week that I don't know who I have coming to call. And on top of that, not only don't know who I have coming to call, I don't know what they can do. With the 2 full-time firefighters there, they can run the truck, they can pump the truck, they can do interior, they can do SCBA, the water technician, water rescue technician. If I make a call today, I don't know who's coming. So, right there you have 2 qualified people that can get something started. I should be tracking sooner, but the last 18 calls during the day, been average 1 or 2 people, sometimes 4, which really surprised me. And it's been a few times, 2 or 3 calls, only 1 person showed up. Structure fire in Athens, they need a tanker and crew, 1 person showed up. Trees and wires all over the road at Williamstown, 2 initially, and I'm hauling radio to more help. Nobody's coming until they finally said, "Oh, you've been hauling the radio quite a lot. You just really needed some help." No kidding, that's why I'm hauling on the radio, because I need more help. There's a real lack of people during the week. And even the people, nothing against the volunteers, because they do a fantastic job, they have even said that their jobs are getting so busy during the week that they may not be able to respond. And I've heard that multiple times. And the other thing I've heard is, so if a volunteer comes to the station from their job, it could take them up to 15, 20 minutes. The 2 full-time people can react at that station within 5 minutes and go, and if we can't get the fire stopped, at least we can help it. If there's a motor vehicle accident, someone's bleeding to death, we can stop that. And that's been proven. We saved 3 people's lives, 2 people's homes, because as fast as we responded. And on top of that, mutual aid, Donnie Frank, I love him, but he got really mad at us because we got to his scene before they did and put the fire out. He was mad at us because we got there first. That's just because nobody has to wait. We're gone. And you have to figure out if a life's worth it, someone's house is worth it. And I did some more research. I don't know if someone else has done the same thing. I took the $140,000 and divided it to the residents that are paying taxes, and it comes out to $7 a month. That's a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk for your extra safety during the week when we don't have enough people responding. That's all I'm going to say.
Any other, yes?
Hi, I'm Natasha. Just basically everybody knows me around here. I've been here for like 14, almost 15 years. I've been raising 3 boys in this town. I worked at the local diner. I substitute in the schools. I work at the local hardware store. I'm a big part of this town. And my house caught fire back in 2017. I watched it burn while I was outside with my 3 young children, and it was caught by lightning. And let me tell you, it is so scary to watch your house burn down and to know that there's a fire station right around the corner. My son's friend, he had an emergency. People who are local were right there. I feel like we're downgrading our town if we don't have a local fire department. What are we doing? Are we upscaling or are we descaling? I feel like we should upscale. People, when we have children and they have those little rugs that you drive vehicles on, there's a fire department in there because it's a part of this town. And the people who work there are a part of this town. And I just feel like we would be degrading ourselves, and I feel like I have voice in this town because I am raising 3 sons in this town, because I have experience with my house burning down, because I have experience with local people showing up when there's a kid in an emergency, because I know these people. It's a good thing about being a small town that we actually know these people in the community. What kind of town are we if we don't stick to our guns with local people and know that the fire department is right around the corner? I feel safe knowing there's a fire department right around the corner. I like driving over the bridge and seeing that our town has a fire department right there. I think it's stupid to be getting rid of a fire department. What town doesn't have a fire department? I feel like we should be looking at the bonds that we're freaking passing through. Should we be passing through all these bonds that are putting us more in debt? We need to be looking at things like those, not a part of our town that has a fire department that we're gonna close down so we can depend on other towns. That's not growing, that's depleting.
I don't think we're closing the fire. I'm gonna ask that everybody shut off your cell phones, please. Yes, sir.
I got a story. Earlier this spring, I was over in Hannaford shopping, and we didn't have some, and the two firefighters, this is 10:30 in the morning, was over there shopping for dinner. Well, is that how they cover the town?
Yes, sir.
Now, without bringing Andy into it, when the full-time firefighters are on, I was once a firefighter 10 years ago, 15 years ago. When they're on, I don't believe Anson has changed. I don't think it's a rescue. I think it's still just a fire department. I don't think we have any rescue certification or licensing. I could be wrong. Now, if they go on a medic call to help the ambulance, then it's defeating the purpose of what we're paying them for, because they're no longer there as firefighters. Secondly, he gave two examples, one in Athens and one that Donnie French was upset with because he beat them to the collar. Well, it sounds to me like they're benefiting from Anson, the little Anson, paying for full-timers without it. I mean, it may be a good idea, but I think it should have been, even though it's mutual aid, I think maybe they should have gone to Madison and said, hey, look, this is what we want to do, you want to help us. But now we're putting a bill for Anson full-timers here first, basically. So I don't think.
Yes, ma'am.
So, my question is to the selectmen, to whoever wants to answer it. So you go to a structure fire, how many firefighters do you need to be there in order to safely execute a fire call? How many firefighters do you need to be there to safely go into a building? Because my guess isn't two. And then, on that, I hear we're getting toned out to a lot more medical calls. Does the fire department have medical certification? Is there oxygen on the truck? Do they have a stop the bleed kit on the truck? Do they have an AED? Because if not, then they're there holding someone's hand to do nothing. And if that's the case, then maybe A&M needs to help and increase their staff. And maybe we need to get another truck for A&M. Maybe we need to get more medics for A&M rather than rely on the fire department. And if we're going to rely more on the fire department, then we need to go through the steps to making sure that they are medical. They have their either EMT advanced, or they are medicals. I think that would be, if we were to do a full-time fire department, I feel like that would be a better use of our tax dollars than just fire. Nothing against either one of our full-time firefighters. They're excellent gentlemen. But it's, what is our dollars worth? I work hard for my money. I'm sure everybody else does here as well. So is it worth it or is it not? And if people are called to a car accident for medical, are they going to be able to do anything?
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Right here.
Yep.
From my understanding, what started this full-time firefighter position, Tammy Murray worked hard to gain grants to make that happen. What happens when them grants run out or we're not able to fund it that way anymore? How much more of a burden are we going to place on people in town of Anson?
Yes, Rebecca.
Hi, Sadie Ayotte. I've lived in this town my entire life. I have two young children that I'm raising as well with my family.
Maybe you help me speak up, if you can.
Sorry, I have something that was written and I would like to read it. It says the intention was to build a fire department service like Nordlock's. Ideally, this was a good idea. However, we were getting grant money to pay for the bulk of the expenses for the first 2 years. Now, the burden has been solely put on the Anson property taxes. Nordrock has the consolidated waste to offset their budget. As we know, not every voter in this town pays property taxes to the town, which accords for the majority of the town's budgets. Rents will rise. We do not have large businesses like Nordrock to help offset these costs. We cannot afford to pay for wants and wishes. We have the responsibility to pay for the needs to operate a safe, healthy, and financially stable government. As with the full-time positions, these costs will continuously increase year after year as well. The continual rise of our everyday living has impacted many already. Then, with the added burden of rising taxes in this town, this may well force longtime residents and our grandparents to leave the area or lose their homes. This town is a small community with heart and determination to make our community the best to live in. We are at the point where hundreds of thousands of dollars have divided the ideals we have long thought to be: kind, caring, compassionate, supportive, understanding, helpful to our neighbors, willing to be of assistance, volunteering, etc., to better serve those in our community. Now, I'm not saying that we no longer have these traits. I'm saying if you can't afford to feed your own families, how can you help feed others?
I'm going to ask that we keep our remarks to no more than about a minute. And the room is quite long. I want to hear from folks, select board, others need to hear from folks, but try to keep your remarks on target and short. Long remarks don't provide any more weight or any more value than short remarks. Anybody else?
Could somebody please answer the question, how many firefighters need to respond to a fire initially? More legally, more will come as the tone has gone out, but how many need to be there to run the truck, go into a building? How many does that take? I know it takes more than 2, and I was wondering, by law, how many people need to be
We have
there?
a fire chief here who can answer that question. Oh, yeah.
So technically, legally, you need 2 in, 2 out. More realistically, you need 2 people to be able to go into the burning building. You need 2 people to be outside the door when those 2 people in there, and you need at least 1 person to pump the truck.
So, at least probably 4 to 5.
5 would be top notch.
I get it.
And I think that only answers the question about the SCBA going into the building. And I think the other part of the question was, what does it take then to run the pumper?
That's what she answered.
Okay, all right. Yes, sir. Leo.
As your deputy chief, to clarify that, by national standard for a single-story residential structure, first due assignment is recommended to have no less than 16 people arriving initially. And if it is a 2-story or more, it goes up to into the mid-20s and upwards from there per floor. So by national standard, the minimum is 16 initially.
My name is Donna Ford. I've been here for 19 years.
Speak up.
My name is Donna Ford. I've been here in Anson for 19 years. We are talking about the financial impacts. I think the other thing everybody needs to think about is if you do away with a full-time fire staff, homeowner insurance rates will then go up.
Believe me, they've all checked it.
Doesn't care. Yes, insurance rates do care. I worked for AIG for a number of years. And it's based off from the department, your fire department status. If you have a volunteer fire department, your homeowner rate is higher than if you have a full-time fire department.
I question that remark only because for the last 2 years or 3 years, we've had a so-called full-time department. My rates didn't go down.
Nor is that a question that insurance companies ask.
Do we have
No,
anybody
they
want
do
to
not.
comment, or have comment before, Mr. back there?
Andre, I'm a volunteer firefighter. Just curious to know where the empirical facts for that claim for the matters in the front about.
She said she worked for AIG Insurance Company for
I understand that. I'd just like to see the empirical evidence proving such statement.
Well, I don't think we're going to see it tonight.
I was an underwriter.
I understand you worked with the
Right,
company. I just want to see the
One of
empirical
the first
evidence.
things that they ask is the county you live in. Every town for insurance companies, you have a rating.
They want to know how far you live from a
They
fire hydrant.
ask how far you are from a fire hydrant, but it also is
And that's
based
what the
on
insurance
if the
is
fire
based on.
department. No, it's also based on if you have a full-time or a volunteer.
Not, I think that's just a bunch of argumentation.
Yeah.
How many do you have in total, both stations?
How many what?
How many?
Fire chief. How many firefighters are there in both stations, north and south?
I think we have, what, 23 on our roster, Jeremy? 23?
23.
I'd like to ask the question to the chief or anybody that knows. How many firemen does it take to get a truck to a site? Not to fight it, not to do stuff, but to get it there and to set up. How many does it take?
Realistically,
Yes, ma'am.
2.
So, thank you. Okay, I'm going to entertain a few more here, but I think we need to, we're kind of going around in circles. Yes, sir.
It may take 2 to get the truck to the fire, but it takes more than 2 to do anything when you're there.
Yeah.
Unless we're just going to spray water on the outside of the building, 2 people is not enough.
Anything new and different? Yes.
I don't know if it's different. Wrong. I've lived in this town for 45 years. Like that young lady, I lost a house to a fire, but it was back in '85. I worked 3/4 of a mile away from home. By the time I got there, I had Anson, North Anson, and Madison Fire Departments there. There was no full-time help back then. I'm saying that the people back in my age were more dedicated to what we're having today.
Okay. Yes.
So keep in mind, changing times in the fire district and fire departments. We're not the only town that has issues with people coming to a scene. It's just not here, it's Madison, it's Starks, it's Farmington taking over, they do industry. We've been asked if we'd help out when Farmington comes to industry to help do mutual aid. Back in the day, we had people that worked in towns, and they were able to leave their business and come to the fire call. Well, I think on the 23 people that's on our fire roster, I think Jeremy and I figured it out, we had probably 6 people that'll live in town during the week. The rest of us kind of work out of town. Yes, it's an expensive program. I think it's well worth to have it in the town of Anson because they are crucial. They get the truck to the scene. God, I hope other people show up, which they do, it takes time, but we have mutual aid. Madison comes over and helps, vice versa. So that being said, I just think we should just get to the end of this and do a vote and carry on.
I think we're pretty close to having a vote.
Oh, we got somebody back here.
Yes, sir, very briefly. You.
I just want to clarify what you said about AEDs and leak control and all that stuff. We have all that on our truck. We have AEDs, we have leak control, we have knock-in, we have CPR.
Okay.
So we can do that stuff.
Somebody over there.
I would like to make a motion to call the vote.
Did I do that?
We have a motion to move the question. We need to have a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. Please vote. So, we're going to have a written ballot. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but the clerk will, I think Nancy has got something in line over there. Kim, Kim has got something in line over there.
Come give a hug. That's what I'm going to do, is get already voted.
Okay, so we're going to have to wait until we get the final tally before we can go on to questions 3 and 4. 3 or 4. Otherwise, that proposal we just forward it on to Article 6, but Article 5.
Motion to go to Article 5.
Second.
Mr. Moderator, can we take a motion to move on to item number 3? And Council
But it's already a motion on the floor to go on to Article number 5, but I'm wondering how long it would take to count the votes. It's only going to take a minute or so. We might just wait and do these in order. and seconded to go on to Article 5, which means temporarily making that pass through to Article 5. This is not debatable as a motion. How many of you, raise your hands if you'd like to go on to Article 5, the discussion of ATV. Down cards, all those opposed. Okay, we'll go on to Article 5 and we'll go back to Articles 3 and 4, 3 or 4, when we get the results. Article 5. To see if the town will vote to allow the select board to deem certain town-owned roads as ATV access routes as defined by the state of Maine's all-terrain vehicle laws and rules, Title 12, Chapter 933, Section 13157-A, Operation of ATVs. A yes vote will allow the select board to deem certain town-owned roads as ATV access routes, as well as discontinue ATV access routes as appropriate. Additions and deletions to access routes may in the future be determined by the select board at regularly scheduled select board meetings. ATV access routes are to be appropriately signed as access routes by the local ATV club. Access routes to be available for use to the general public as allowed by the laws set forth by the state of Maine and during periods of each year when the area ATV trails are open, typically from late May to mid-November each year, and from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. So the motion is, I should say, the article is as to the first paragraph. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion and a second as read. Any questions, comments, concerns? Yes, sir.
Did I understand that correctly, that we can add or delete roadways without having to go through a special town meeting, correct? Yes, that's all right. Thank you.
That's an affirmative statement, yes, sir.
So my name's Eric, I live on the 4 Mile Square. Even with this rule not in place, the dirt roads in our town are already used by ATVers. They do donuts, they speed, they tear up our town roads already. And Artie does very good work keeping them as clean as possible. But I believe that by enacting this law, we will be further decreasing the quality of life of people who live on those roads because they will be further torn up and further used. And that is my main concern with enacting this article.
If you're doing it now, and it's not legal, then the problem, the ones that are waiting to do it legally aren't going to. Doesn't seem to make any sense to say that it would increase because you are now allowing honest legal people to ride on.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't think the selectmen should have any business selecting roads. Because we're gonna vote on some roads tonight, right? 4 Mile Square and there's a few other little roads we have. So if we're gonna vote on them, why is the selectmen gonna pick roads up a little bit later on? Selectmen. Should go, if you make a list up and go back to a vote. No, it doesn't make any sense to do what they're doing, except for they want to.
Well, is that only dirt roads that are affected by this? Or is it any roads that would be, where are the roads that are gonna be?
The last one, 234, it's in here.
Oh, these are the roads.
There you go.
Okay, thanks so much. So my question is, who supervises this? Like, I see people on four-wheelers and they're not necessarily they're not accessing the trails, they're just sort of riding on the road. And who's gonna, is there oversight of that, or what, are there penalties if they're not really using it for the purpose of accessing the trails, which I think is, people like to do that, the access, but if they're just sort of, playing around with their vehicles, then how does that impact everybody else?
I would refer back to his comment. They're already doing it. They're going to continue to do it. People who aren't doing it are waiting for it to be legal and probably wouldn't misbehave on the road.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
So this was brought up with our town discussion last night. Is there a way to enforce that, and I understand, law-abiding ones, the nice ones, the ones that are gonna do this the right way, any way that we can enforce insurance, be held accountable for these? There's been so many times, just with the rail bed over on the end of Horseback here, that they have not stopped, and I've almost got hit by one. If they're not insured, I'm paying for damages on my truck, and it's not cheap. We're gonna just open up roads now for property damage to happen, for who knows what to happen. Is there any way that we can tell them you have to have insurance because now you have to cover? As a vehicle driver on these roads, I have to have insurance.
Real quick, as somebody who's paying for an ATV, I have to have insurance.
That doesn't clarify the ones that don't pay for their ATVs that own them. Don't have to have insurance.
I would just comment that there's plenty of people driving cars who don't.
Yes, sir.
It's really no different than snowmobiles that already have access to the same thing, crossing roads. I mean, it's the same thing, different time of year.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
Player plan road right at the trail. And I see constant traffic. And I don't see it slow down very often. And this says not after 10 p.m. I think somebody interviewed people at 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Okay. I'm gonna say that,
in terms of enforcement, if it's not legal currently, and the ordinance doing something about it, I think it would actually be much more difficult to enforce if it's legal, because now there's less of a reason to know for sure that that person shouldn't be able to carry just with that.
there's no other comment in the back?
Yes. I live about 1.5 miles from here. I live out 5 corners. I'd like to be able to access the trail. Can't even trail to anywhere to park because it's always full. So I would just like to be able to have permission to go from my house to the trail.
Okay, I think this is another situation where people probably have their minds pretty well made up and they're not going to be convinced one way or the other. I'm going to call for a vote unless there's adamant opposition to that. So this is Article 5, and I'll restate the article. The town will vote to allow the select board to deem certain town-owned roads as ATV access routes as defined by the state of Maine's all-terrain vehicle laws and rules. The Title 12, Chapter 933, Section 13157A, Operation of ATV. All those in favor of Article 5, please raise cards. Down cards, all those opposed. So we need to do something else for a vote.
That would be a standing vote or?
Let's see the division of all.
Yep, you can do that too.
How about if all those in favor again, raise your cards, just keep them right up there, all right? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article 7. It's Article 6. Article 6, I'm sorry. To see if the town will vote to allow the select board the discretion to favor certain Maine Department of Transportation-owned roads as ATV access routes as defined by the state of Maine's all-terrain vehicle ATV laws and rules, Title 12, Chapter 933, Section 13157A, Operation of ATVs. That's the article. There's some information here. It says a yes vote will allow the select board the discretion to complete their portion of the multi-jurisdictional process to request certain MDOT-owned roads as ATV access routes, as well as to petition MDOT to discontinue ATV access as appropriate. The process to create ATV access routes on an MDOT road is a multi-part process that starts with a club request. If the select board approves the request is forwarded to the ATV program director at the state level, and if approved, forwarded to MDOT for an engineering study. ATV access routes on MDOT roads are to be appropriately signed as access routes by MDOT at the expense of the local ATV club. Access routes are to be available for use to the general public as allowed by the laws set forth by the state of Maine and during periods of each year when the area ATV trails are open, typically from late May to mid-November of each year and from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. So the first paragraph that I read is the article itself. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, there we go.
Yes, is there a fee associated with the application process?
Is there a fee associated with the application?
Don't know. This came from the trail folks.
Somebody from the trail folks here.
I'm here, but I don't have that information. Jeff has it.
Somebody from the trails here, but they don't have that information. Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'm gonna just call for a vote.
I got one question.
Oh yeah, there you go.
It says in that paperwork that they handed out at the beginning of the meeting here that they have to have DOT engineers sign off on certain roads and stuff. Is that a charge to the town, four-wheeler club, or no charge, or what?
Does anybody know the answer to that question, which is as to whether MDOT engineering studies are going to cost the town or anybody else?
I believe, Mr. Moderator, I believe that it's going to be up to the club, but I'm not sure on that. I don't believe there's any charge to the town on that.
Everybody hear that answer? Any other questions, comments, concerns before we go to a vote? All those, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your green cards. Down cards, all those opposed. It's a vote. So going back to Article 2, we had 107 yes, 53 no, and 1 blank. So Article 2 has passed. What that means is we go to Article 3. Yes. 107 to 53 to 1. Article 3 is an appropriate article given that the full-time positions were eliminated. So Article 3 is to see what sum of money the inhabitants of the town of Anson will vote to raise and appropriate to supplement the fire department budget should the full-time positions be eliminated. And as a piece of information, we have financial impact, 2025 operations budget $169,800, revised annual payroll $145,908, total budget was $315,708, less the adopted budget from March 8th of 2025 of $263,945 for additional funding needed of $51,763. Do I hear a motion on this item? Yes, sir. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion as read and a second. Yes, sir.
So in view of the way Article 2 was passed, why are we taking up Article 3, which assumes we eliminated the full-time firefighters?
And because we voted yes on Article 2.
This was an elimination of the fire.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Had we voted no, we would have gone to Article 4.
Okay.
Don't keep this
Okay. I misunderstood.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll call.
I'm just wondering, are these figures bringing the part-time firefighters back up to their $19, or are we keeping them at their wage?
What's the plans on the part-time firefighters $19?
Let's keep them at minimum wage.
Are we allowed to amend this to bring them back up to $19 an hour where they were before?
What was the answer? Did you get the answer you're looking for?
Yes, and she wanted to know if she was allowed to amend it.
Is somebody proposing to amend it? Unless somebody proposes to amend it, it's not going to be amended.
I'd like to amend it to put us back at $19 an hour.
Okay, so what we need,
Moderator?
this,
I believe that this is substantially changing the article, which you can't do without informing the public.
I'm going to disagree with you because it says to see what sum of money, so it's an open, uncapped article.
Okay.
And the additional funding needed under the selectmen's budget is $51,763, which I guess is at what, 15? What's minimum wage? $15?
$14.65.
The problem I have with your amendment is you're not able to articulate any particular number of dollars.
Yeah, $19 an hour.
So,
That's what we were at, and we've been reduced.
Yeah, so I did some math here. So the additional funding that needs to be raised is 69166. That raises the revised annual payroll to 163,311, and the total budget will be 333,111, as stated in this on the page as Article 24, pay call at $19 an hour.
So, what about payroll, taxes, and benefits and all that? It's already in there?
Yes.
So what we have is an amendment on the floor to raise this bottom line number, the additional funding needed, from $51,763 to $69,166.
But I think it needs to be stated that those wages are going up, and that's what we're voting on. That they will get that increase.
What we
that
are voting
increase
on-
in the budget just can't be used for anything.
What
It
we
has
are-
to be used for them being raised back up to $19 an hour. I think that needs to be stated in the vote.
You want that stated in the amendment, that the additional funds will be used for raising the salary of the firefighter.
Correct. A portion of that, I know
Because
they
we
need it
have
for
to
other
deal-
things, but a portion of that has to be used for raising.
We have to deal with sums of money, because that's the sense of the article.
I understand that, but if you just do money, they can appropriate it any way they want.
So, you created the amendment, is that correct? All right, so,
I never heard a second to that amendment.
well, we're going to get, I think we're going to get there eventually. So, what is your amendment?
My amendment I don't know the numbers, he recited off the numbers for told us. We were reduced from 19 to minimum wage. I just want to put us back to where we were, at $19 an hour.
Now, the young lady over there has indicated that she wants to make sure those dollars are allocated towards actually raising the wages to $19 an hour.
Yes, I would just like to make it clear that we're not getting a raise. We were reduced at the last town meeting for budget cuts. I just want to go back to where we were before the last town meeting.
They were reduced because of the budget. To pay for the full-time firemen.
Well, the budget was cut from $400,000 to make up the difference. They reduced our pay and some other cuts. I just want to get us back to where we were.
So somebody needs to articulate, I'm not the one to do it. Right? Somebody here needs to articulate the wording for this amendment. There's a lady back there in pink who just raised her hand.
Well, I just was curious to see that number that was rattled off, the 69,166 more funding needed. Does that include, yes, I understand it's the $19 per hour to put us back where we were, the firefighters, but does that?
As I understand, that's the purpose of it, is to, the purpose of the calculation, but there are those who want to make sure that purpose is actually put into the amendment to the article.
Can I continue? I just want to know that that is the correct number for the $19 per hour to put the firefighters back to their pay. But does that also include our lieutenant's position paid back, the captain's position, our deputy chief's position? Is that stipend included in that price? Because I couldn't find the breakdown anywhere that you provided with this information of that, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, go ahead. We have a non-voter.
I move to have Indigo speak.
We have a second. We need to have 2/3 of the voters present, or hear that. All those in favor, please use your cards. Down cards. All those opposed.
So to answer your question, Karen, yes, I had put in to bring the stipends back up to $21,150. That puts all of the stipends back to what they were at in 2024. I also had taken the hours from the 2024 payroll, and I did add another 200 hours to the paid call volunteer for the remainder of the year.
And did those figures include bringing up the part-timers back up to 19? Or?
Yes.
Okay, because you didn't just state that, and I wanted to make it clear.
Correct, yes. So this is paying all of the paid call firefighters back at their $19 an hour. On average, they had 3,699 hours last year, and it also includes putting all the salaries back to where they were, which would be a budget adjustment, bringing them up to $21,150. And to do that, you would need, as Daniel stated, to raise an additional $69,166.
That's on top of the 51?
No, in lieu of.
Instead of. Okay.
Would that number go down at all because of like the health insurance and all that?
Well, we can't have any more discussion until we actually have an amendment on the floor. We don't have an amendment on the floor yet, because nobody's actually articulated an amendment for us to actually have the subject for our discussion.
Okay, I got the amendment.
All right.
I would like the town to appropriate $69,166 for the fire department budget to include the pay increase to $19 an hour. That's my amendment.
So you want to use $69,166?
I'm sorry if I didn't word that correctly. For the paid on-call firefighters.
You read it back to me?
Made a motion to appropriate $69,166 to restore the pay back to $19 an hour for paid on-call firefighters.
And that's an amendment to Article 3. Okay, we have a second on that. Okay. Any further discussion about this, or are we just going to go to a vote?
Well, I'm sorry, being confused, but, so we're speculating on how many hours on-call firefighters might work based on past history, correct? And we were gonna, and everybody was gonna pay $19, except for these two women full-time, were coming back and they were gonna pay the minimum wage rather than the $19. So now everybody who's on-call, these two that are coming back, are simply just a part of the pool of on-call. They're not coming back, but they will be in the fire department as on-call people. Is that correct? And all of the on-call people get paid $19 an hour per call. Is that correct?
It's going to be eliminating full-time. And we're going to bring them up to 90. So I would like to know what the difference is between the money that the two-timers would have been making compared to the additional cost at $19. If we get rid of two full-time jobs, then that money should be used to help cover the volunteers.
If the vote had gone the other way, you'd be talking about Article 4, not Article 3.
Mr. Moderator, this past spring at town meeting, did we or did we not cut $150,000 out of the budget for a parking lot?
Well, the response is basic. Yes, sir.
I can explain that. I was the one that made the cut at the town meeting. The intent of the cut was to do away with the full-timers at that time, which they did not do. They cut everything from everywhere else, took our pay down, did everything there, cut all the budgets right down to nothing. And then now they're crying for more money, which we're going to need because now they wouldn't listen to the hubbub around town that that's what they wanted when they voted it, the cut. So now we had to have a special town meeting to show this board what the townspeople wanted, the majority. So that's why we've got to have a little more because they kept the full-timers on past March, which when we made that cut, and we assumed that it would be fine, which it would have been if they would have cut those positions then. That's the explanation for that, and that's why we're where we're at.
This, they keep saying raise, to go back to the $19, is that going to be retroactive back to March when they cut it? Because when they were supposed to cut the $150,000, it appears all they cut was the volunteers' pay down to minimum wage because of retaliation. The ones that voted against their wishes. So I'd like to see it retroactive back to March.
Arnold says it will be retroactive.
Okay.
Okay, let's call for a vote. I think we've got mine pretty well made up. And this is a vote on the amendment only. And what we've done is we've raised the amount to be raised to $69,166. With those additional funds we use to increase the minimum wage, increase the payroll to $19 per hour. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down the cards, all those opposed. That's a vote. And now we go back to the main article as amended. So, can you tell us what the article is as amended?
The article would be to see if the inhabitants of the town of Anson will vote to raise and appropriate $69,166 to restore pay to $19 per hour for paid on-call firefighters to supplement the fire department budget should the full-time positions be eliminated.
Okay, that's the main article as amended. I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Down cards, all those opposed. It's a vote. Article 4 is a nullity. So,
Yeah, you want some?